more than single-channel shoppers? With Worldpay's omnichannel platform, you can turn single transactions into smarter connected customer experiences. So while you set the style trend, we can help maximize your omnichannel payment spend. Let's reinvent smarter. Visit fisglobal.com.
Welcome to BOF Live. Today's guest is Dries van Noten, who needs absolutely no introduction. And Dries and I have been talking for so many years now, and has always been, to me, would always be one of the most interesting conversations I could have. And we've been having them during the whole lockdown thing. And now it looks like we're cresting on a second wave in both the UK and in Belgium. So our optimism is about to be challenged once again. But in the last few weeks, Dries made a huge and gorgeous investment in the future by opening a store in Los Angeles, which I dearly wish I will get to see very, very soon. Now, Dries, congratulations on the store. Tell me what's happening with it.
Oh, thank you.
And welcome.
Welcome. No, the store was something which I was already dreaming for a long time to open a store in the US. The choice was rather quickly made that it would be more Los Angeles than New York, because it was more like a store to try out things. But then, of course, COVID happened. We all went in lockdown. We read that opening ceremony was going to close down their stores in LA and in New York. And I visited the space once 5 years ago for 10 minutes, very short, just like popping in and out. And it was a space which really had a good energy. So I started to think about it, and I said, like, why not? Okay, we know that the problems of COVID are not going to be open in autumn, but why not take the risk? Maybe as a sign of hope, just like looking to a bright future, just to go for it and just say, okay, let's think about a new way of doing brick and mortar stores, trying to reinvent kind of everything what is kind of selling clothes. And we went for it. In the meantime, of course, we were working also in a forum where we were talking about how fashion has to slow down and all those things. So it was the lockdown was okay on one hand. Of course, it was not a very nice period because you can't meet people, you can't sit around the table and having a good glass of wine with a lot of friends. But it was a very interesting period because we were forced to stay at home and to think. So I think everything what I've been doing the last months is a little bit the result of this.
But the shop is extraordinary. I mean, I've seen pictures and the video walkthrough. You did the whole thing remotely. I imagine that must have been torture for you.
Of course, I think you know that I'm very hands-on, and indeed, it was really like the most complicated exercise to do everything. First, to do the architecture, create, in fact, the flow if you walk, because it's a big store. It's 850 square meters, so it's like 8,500 square foot. So when we had to remove quite a lot of walls and change the flow of the whole building. So that was in fact the most complicated thing, because luckily I never had a good friend over there who was there the whole time with me on FaceTime, walking through the space, and then I could direct, look once to the left, turn once to the right, what is happening there, what do you see now, do one step backwards, can we show the floor, can we show the ceiling? It's in that way that we start to work, how I could discover the space and how we could recreate kind of a nice flow in the building. And then secondly, afterwards also to start to think about the decorations. So it was long evenings on first dips and all those things, because it was also my idea. I didn't want to make of that store like the traditional fashion marble palace. So it had to be really kind of a rough space where you just like to do things which are not always related to fashion, which is really inviting to take initiatives, to paint on the wall, to do things, to show things, to change things. So I think that's a little bit what's happening with a lot of stores. It's so expensive when you see all the marble and all these precious materials and things like this, that they become very static. And I just wanted to have more like a youth club, more people where people can just come in, play on the piano. We have a grand piano, an old Steinway from 1928 at the entrance. Play a record, do things. That it's really kind of a place where you love to go to. Okay, maybe sometimes to buy clothes, and otherwise also to discover things, art, music, food, all those different things.
So it's kind of like a little cultural center in a way.
Yeah, but don't make it too. I don't want to look at it in a pretentious way. Like, look, oh, now we have really the high art and expensive art. In that way, also the idea was I want to bring art in. I want to bring like local people, local artists to the space. So we invited already now, I think four artists from LA, because during COVID, of course, the lockdown, we couldn't really have people traveling. And we are invited them to paint directly on the wall. So that is kind of a homage to that street art, that whole graffiti and street art from LA. But also to take a little bit away the mercantile aspect of art. So I didn't want, like when you have in other stores, like the most expensive paintings on the walls. No, I really wanted to have young people enjoying themselves, to make their mark on the building. And they know also that maybe in a few months' time, we're going to paint it over and that we're going to ask somebody else. So that is really kind of something which is in continuous change, so that we have other fashion designers coming in to show also. We have several exhibition spaces. We have all those opportunities there to do things. We have the vinyl room where we invite every month of other personalities to make a selection of 20 records which we buy and sell them to the public. So now the first month it's too many DJs from Belgium, and then next month it's going to be the Vendra Banhart. So every month it's like somebody from LA, somebody from New York, people who just want to share their love for music. We have books. So I didn't want that it becomes kind of a concept store. I don't want that it makes it too cultural, but just nice place to gather.
And what's been the early response?
It's really very, very positive. And what is really nice is, and that's I think typical LA, is that you have all those completely different type of people coming to the store. So the first weeks, the first week and a half we are open now, we really have seen that we have even more than in Antwerp, different age groups and different style groups. You have like the rapper guys walking around with their girlfriends and their gang. And then you have, on the other hand, the most classy chic lady from 70 years old who wants to have like one embroidered piece. So, and I was hoping for that, but it's quite nice to see that this works, so that there is something changing. And what people really react very well on, in fact, is also the archive room. It's also something which happened with the forum that we were thinking, how can we slow down fashion? Is something beautiful, which is now really beautiful, is then the value going down with 50 or 70% after 6 months because everything is in sale. So, and my reaction on that was that I wanted to make kind of an archive room where it's like a room for men, and on the second floor, it's a room for women, where you have a selection of old pieces from our collections. In the past, we have our archive, of course, with all the fashion show looks, which I don't touch, don't think that. But we have also a lot of pieces which I always thought was a pity to put them in sales. So it's a lot of pieces from the Christian Lacroix collaboration, of course, which we did last season. All those beautiful embroidered jackets. We didn't really see the stores because most of them were locked down really in March and reopened somewhere in June. So we have a lot of those pieces left over, but for me, it was going to be a pity to put all those pieces in sale. So we said, okay, we put them aside and we show them later again, maybe. So it's a mixture of pieces of the 90s, 2000, 2010, but also recent pieces. And it's one room completely covered in pictures from old fashion shows. And the reactions are great. The people really love that idea that you can easily combine things from previous seasons with recent pieces, and that's in fact of the rooms which is the most busy for the moment. Also the jewels from all the accessories from all the fashion shows what we did. Everything is there now for the moment. And people really love to go through that, to discover and to understand in fact what you want to say with it.
See, I've been saying that one thing that would be wonderful to come out of this crisis is that we reconceptualize the notion of value. You know, you just mentioned why everything goes on sale, you know, so quickly, and it kind of degrades the preciousness of things. And I really like an initiative that elevates the preciousness of things. Just because something's from a season that's 15 years old, it doesn't devalue it in any way. You know, in fact, it makes it more valuable because you know, your collections were always so huge, and you never really saw them in their full splendor unless you went to one of your shop in Antwerp or the shops in Paris. So I always thought, oh, I wish, you know, I would have bought that if I'd seen that. And now you're giving people that opportunity. So I really love that. I think I love that the most, and the music and the vinyl.
Yeah, the vinyl, of course, is really fun. But no, but also another idea what we have there is that once COVID is over, and I hope that this is going to be sooner than later, that once COVID is over, we're going to also we're going to invite people to bring old pieces back, worn pieces which are still in good conditions, so that we can also sell in archive rooms worn pieces. So that's not only things which are coming from our archive, because this, of course, is not going to be eternal. This I know also. Of course, every 6 months, new pieces are added. But I think for me, the idea is also that you go really the full circle, so that in that room, you can also offer special pieces what people still have in their wardrobe that they don't want to keep anymore. Okay, we can dry clean them, we can restore them, and we can offer them then again for sale, that we can get a second life. So there are so many things what we can do in that store. And I think that's also great about LA. It's really a place who invites you to take risks, to try out things. And they are very forgiving in LA. I think in New York, it would be more scary. Of course, New York is also more expensive. Everything is more expensive in New York to open stores and things like that. The square foot, I think the price is more than double than what you pay in LA. But still, you have that whole idea that it's very forgiving. So, okay, let's paint on the wall. If you don't like it, okay, let's do something else. We had one artist who made a beautiful artwork in the black fitting room, a black painted fitting room. And it was completely done in resin. The smell was unbearable for 4 days. And that, of course, those are risks that you take. When you buy an artwork and you put it against the wall, you know what you're going to get. In this case, it was a young guy, very charming, really beautiful art, what he was doing. And it was completely made in resin. So we closed the fitting room now for a few days. And luckily enough, we have the idea now that the smell is going away. So, so we're going to use that fitting room now, I think from next week on, because the smell is going to be then okay, I guess.
Or you tell people it's a nice smell.
Yeah, no, but that I think is the nice thing, which gives the energy in that store. And I think that's also what I hope that people can appreciate of how we do it.
Have you felt really, as this period has been, the last 7 months have been all about restrictions and limitations. And it's interesting how many people I've spoken to who feel energized by that, who confronted by this absolutely unprecedented challenge have really risen to it. I've felt that you, with the store and with the forum that you've created, with bringing other voices from the fashion industry together, that you have a mission. You seem to be a man with a new sense of mission.
Well, I think you can do two things when you're in a situation like everybody was in lockdown, or you can sit quietly in a corner and feel miserable, or you can say like, okay, come on, what can we do? And I'm more a person of like doing things, trying to resolve problems and jumping on things. I think also it's maybe a little bit our Belgian attitude. At the end, when we started with our collections in the 80s, then we had restrictions. That was a complicated time. Belgium was not existing. So we went through this with quite a lot of success. So I think so we had already so many big, huge problems with 9/11. We had Gulf Wars. We had all those things, financial crises. All those things already happened and we survived. So I have a lot of confidence in the future that also this we're going to survive. Maybe it's more global than everything what we experienced in the past, but I think it creates opportunities, and the restrictions for me, it's not really such a bad thing. Okay, we had to be more careful buying materials for the new collection. We had to organize everything in a different way, but in one way or another, you're getting used to things so quickly. And you discover also new things. The fact that we're sitting now here, Zooming and talking, who would have thought about that last year? So, okay, Tim would fly over to Antwerp or me would fly over to London, and it would be a much more complicated thing. Now it's just that you open your laptop and here we are. So I see it in a rather positive way. Okay, of course, I really hope that everybody around me stays healthy and okay, when you get ill, that everybody comes out in a good way. But still, I have a lot of confidence in the future.
You know, when we talked at the very beginning of when the lockdown started, you were very concerned about fashion shows because you are a longtime master of the fashion show. As anyone who saw that amazing book you did will know that you are the master of the intelligent spectacle. And you were concerned because you said this is something you love in fashion, that at the end of a season of hard work, this is the way you share. This is the way you share what you've done. Instead of a fashion show, you did what would I call it? Like a sort of multi, what would you call it? What would you call your virtual presentation?
I think I would call it virtual presentation. No, I don't know. There is not really a name for it. But of course, again, there you can again say BSAT. So it was after 114 shows we did. It was like more than 30 years of fashion shows. It was really very confronting to see like, okay, now next season no show. And I think now everybody was a little bit realistic also next season and spring, there's not going to be shows either. So it was really like, okay, how can we present the show? How can we present the collection? What can we do? For us as a team, a fashion show was always like the grand finale of a collection. Everything was done thinking about the show. Of course, not making the fashion, the clothes, but we were really very hands-on with everything, which is music, hair, makeup, selection of models, all those things. It's like a piece of theater where you think to tell a story and there everything becomes real. So everything, and it's a very intense emotion, a fashion show, because you can't do rehearsal. You can't do rehearsal with hair, makeup, and the clothes. So there's only like one moment that you see all those things together, and that's the moment that the person who organizes the show says like, go. And then you have the first model walking on the catwalk, and that's the first moment that you see everything what you've worked on with the whole team for 6 months time. That's the first time that you see, okay, is it going to work? Yes or no? Is the music right? Is the light okay? Is the makeup too strong or too soft? All those things. That's the moment that you see it. And this moment wasn't there anymore. So it was like, oops, what shall we do now? And then we thought also it's a nice moment maybe also to explain maybe some more things about fashion, because of course a fashion show is a magical moment, but you see only a final product. You see only the dream, and you don't know all the way, the why and the how that we made certain things. And then we said like, maybe we have to work in a different way. So we have to work that we make a nice shoot, which creates the emotion, which shares kind of the way that we look, the person, the man, the woman who want to dress. But then we can explain also much more about the collection. So that was that optimistic feel which I wanted to translate in the collection. So we had models dancing under the projections. I forgot to mention, we did for the summer collection, next summer collection, we did a collaboration with Len Lai. Len Lai is an artist from New Zealand, Tim's home country.
And I'd never heard of him, I blush to admit.
But the nice thing, it was like it was all 1930s, late 1920s, early 30s movies, completely painted on the celluloid, scratched and things like that. But it was very vibrant colors. It was very fun, very optimistic, and it looked like really like psychedelic late 60s, early 70s. It was like completely like a trip. But then when you hear the music with it, it was really nice because you had clearly that kind of 1930s Josephine Baker music. So it was a very interesting thing and a very optimistic and fun, and we wanted to translate that. So when we were working together with Vivian Sasson for the shoot, we asked also that the models were dancing while the films were projected on top of them. So, and it gave really that kind of color, that abstract feeling, and the feeling was completely right. So the presentation, what we did was partly those films, partly the beautiful pictures from Vivian on the beach, in the park during the night, in the studio, all those different aspects. But then we were also able to explain much more. So we showed also to all the people the little original films from Len Lai, the explanation of who Len Lai was and all those things. So it was a total package where you had like all the information, and that was the first time for us, because okay, you can, during a fashion show, you can show something, and then sometimes backstage it's quite interesting when you have them people from the press. Oh, it was so interesting. It was completely Moroccan inspired. And then I say, like, the problem was it was all Romania, so something went wrong. So now we had the possibility to explain something 100% to show. That's where we started from. That's the emotion want to share, and look for yourself now if it works. And reactions were really very positive. People really loved it.
You could control your message.
Yeah, for the first time.
I thought you didn't. You mentioned Vivian Sasson in passing there, and I think if you explained who she was so crucial in the success of this, because she made the little film on the iPhone of the models dancing under the Len Lai projections, which just looked like a total happening. You know, it looked like the exploding plastic inevitable, or the Fillmore or something in San Francisco. And then she did the incredible editorial, because she shoots colorful clothes in motion just about better than anybody else in fashion, I think. And I'm curious about how that came together, because it was just the most perfect collaboration.
At a certain moment, we started to dream, of course. You start to work on the collection. It's a lot of brainstorms by Zoom quite often to see how we're going to work and all those things. Then you see the fabrics, you see the shimmer, you see the shine of certain materials, you see the bold colors, you think about that whole emotion and the whole aesthetic from Len Lai. And then you say, okay, now we have to look for the photographer. And then Vivian Sasson's pictures are always on our mood boards. There is something so clear. So in one way, something quite straightforward about them. No tricks. It's just like a very direct beauty. And we knew that we wanted to have something light, colorful, summer feeling. And we approached her, and she loved the idea. And then once we knew we were going to work together with her to put the outfits together, to do the last changes about the fabrics and to things, it became all clear. It all started to make sense. And that was really a beautiful moment, because she works also so fast. I was really surprised to see how she works. And so we were on the beach at 7 o'clock in the morning, because we had only one morning of beautiful weather. We hoped for 2 days on the beach. It became only one morning. And between 7 and 11, I think she photographed 20 looks. It was so amazing to look the way that she works. She places a model. We had the guy looking to the clouds with a kind of a lens. And he could say, like, Vivian, in 30 seconds, you have 20 seconds of sunshine. And the model was placed there, and then the sun appeared, and it was tack, 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 tack. And then afterwards, I have it. Okay, next to it. And that was so amazing. And that was also the spontaneous, the directness, which gave the pictures also the energy. And I think that's also what you feel, even if it's like a picture, you still feel that it's you feel the moment. And that, I think, is fantastic.
Now, that editorial had to sort of fill the role of the show in a way, in showing the audience what the clothes do. So that was a new thing for you. But do you feel now that you had that experience, that actually that is an avenue you'd be happy to explore some more? I think you're probably going to have to, and you know, in March.
We'll have to for next season also. It was a new thing for us because you know that we don't make publicity. So my only way of expression always has been fashion shows. So thinking now about a shoot, thinking about how magazines are shooting things, that whole, which also something which we kind of nearly lost now, that the whole shoots for magazines, all that aesthetic. When you think about Ray Petrie, when you think about all those great moments, that's a little bit also because when I think about fashion, most of the strongest images which are popping up in my head are still images, are photographs from Paul Poiret, beautiful garments. It's 1930s, so 1920s, 1930s, beautiful Art Deco things. It's 80s Ray Petrie. It's like all those, most of the time it's photo shoots what you think about. So it was quite interesting to work once around that. So because in my memory, okay, I still remember fashion shows, but for me, most of the images is shoots. So it's quite interesting. And I think also when you see now what everybody did now in September during Paris and London and New York Fashion Week, some people say they are disappointed and they were expecting more. And then some people did fashion shows and some people did this. So I think it's quite interesting what's happening. Okay, everybody knows that maybe you're not there yet and that there's much more to explore, but don't forget, I think everybody had to do it also. A lot of more independent designers had to do that also, maybe with a slightly smaller budget than normal. And I think it's cool. It's something which we all are learning now to see what works, what doesn't work. And we are talking now already where the whole photo shoot came only the last 2 months of the creative period last season. Now we turned it around. So now we are discussing already what can we do as presentation. Maybe the presentation can have that also influence on what the collection is going to be. So it's quite interesting. So it's again a challenge, and we love challenges.
So I thought it was interesting when people said how much they enjoyed, buyers, for example, retailers said how much they enjoyed being able to go back and look at things again. I mean, like you said, the show is a show, 15 minutes, you're gone to the next one. But here you could, it was like having a book that you could dip back into, you know, you could page back through it, look at your favorite pictures, read the text or whatever that you were interested in. And I thought it just added such a dimension to the way you experience a fashion collection. I was surprised at how seductive it was in a way, because I love fashion shows as well. And I looked at I looked at the Len Lai films. I looked at Vivian's photographs. I listened to you speaking about the collection, and it was so entrancing, I thought, as an option to the way things have always been done.
I think the moment that we're going to go now back to fashion shows, maybe also fashion shows will be changed, the concept of a fashion show. I was surprised to see how, because there are different designers who did an actual fashion show. And then afterwards, when you heard people talking about it, it was all a bit like, it felt not right to see in the times we are in now a fashion show. And I just start to ask myself, once we are out of this whole terrible situation we are all in now, what is going to be the role of a fashion show? Next season, we're going to have much more experience now, how we can share things. You have like all those beautiful things. You have that beautiful video that John Galliano did for Margiela. You have all those things that you can learn, because you see that you can share, that you can organize. And maybe that the fashion show is only then one of the elements which we're going to use to communicate about the collections. I think fashion shows could become maybe also much more personal things that okay, now we are missing all personal contact. Maybe fashion show for me can become something where you have just like smaller groups, small groups of people there, where you can explain something which is more like a tete-a-tete meeting sometimes, all those type of things. And I think, yeah, it's we start only to begin to discover now the possibilities which we have. And I don't talk only about all the technical and all the computer possibilities of Zoom and FaceTime and all those things. No, I think we can get really smaller, and we can, and okay, normally would say, oh, it's a risk, we can't take that. Now we are forced to take risks. And I think that's the exciting thing also of it.
But you mentioned how for March, you're already thinking about how to work on the collection in a way that will be reflected by whatever you decide to do in March. So in other words, you can feel that this situation is kind of mutating your creative instincts a little bit.
Mm-hmm. I think it would be strange that our creativity wouldn't be infected by what we are going through now. I think there are different ways to look to this, and so that's also a big part of our discussions with our creative team, where you clearly say, like, okay, how do we live this? Do you really want to feel sorry, sit somewhere in an easy couch and just wear only sweatshirts and sweatpants? Or is it then just a moment, know that you want to have a party on your own and dancing on the wild music in your living room? Or is it something that you say, like, the future can be bright and let's just think about that? So there are so many different ways to cope with that, to see how you have to handle it. Of course, the business side is not easy. The practical side is not easy. We don't know if you're going to go back in lockdown, what we have to do with our printed fabrics, how complicated we can make everything. For instance, for this next summer collection, you know that we always have like the most intricate embroideries. Now our people couldn't travel to India. India was also partly in lockdown, so we really had to simplify everything. But for me, it was important that we continue to make embroideries because those people need work. So it's all those things which you have to keep in mind. And of course, you have sometimes maybe different priorities, but still that going forward and trying to change things, not standing still, not looking to backwards and saying, oh, it was so much better before COVID. No, I think make the best of it. That's what we try now also with the store. That's what you try also with the collections.
But you feel that there's a sort of defiance in that as well from you, that you know, I thought the collection was bold, and I did feel it was defiant in its colors and its glamour. It was a very, even though you said that, you know, you couldn't do the embroideries and things you used to, that you would usually do, it was still a wonderful celebration. You know, it was there was color and shine and glam and all the things that I love in your clothes. And I really felt that was quite a defiant gesture in the time. You know, that there were people who said, oh, I was going to do a black collection. And then I thought, no, I'm going to go color, you know. And I really, that was a wonderful response, I thought.
Mm-hmm. I think, yeah, it's, of course, you don't know how people are going to react, because we were maybe also lucky that we showed the collection in a rather optimistic period, that everybody just came out of the first wave. And I think maybe when you would make a collection now, that everybody feels really depressed. Okay, oh, please, no, there we go again, second lockdowns coming up and things like this. But yeah, I think it's in my nature to stay optimistic. And I think in a period like this, I think I made a few quite dark collections, I think 2 winters ago, the one with the flowers from the garden, which were all kind of sick flowers. It was like the imperfect beauty of a flower, where it was all with diseases and things like that. And it was like all half eaten by insects. That was not the most happy collection maybe which I made, and it was all gray and strange pastels. But then, okay, when you're standing in a situation like this, what sense does it make when everybody's looking like dark and not happy? Don't push them even more down by making a black collection. Just
even the collection before spring summer 2021, I mean, the autumn winter 2020 collection, that collection had a real edge, a sort of, you wouldn't have said it was a happy collection. It had a kind of...
It was not really happy collection. It was, let's call it, in that moment, we called it more a mysterious collection, but a mysterious collection with a serious dark edge. So it was something dark, and okay, maybe it was that more like late 70s, early 80s aesthetic of Serge Lutens, but still, there was all that shine, things like that. There was definitely a darkness.
But it was, when you look back on it, it's interesting. Do you ever say to yourself, oh, I really felt that there was something coming, because it had that strange anticipation of difficult, dark times ahead, you know, as sort of the sense of the world spinning out of control. I thought that, you know, if it was like you had a crystal ball with that collection, I thought. And this one was so upbeat and so joyful.
Yeah, it's really the moment it pushes me. And I'd say also that for me, it's important that a collection has to reflect a little bit what you feel, what you need in the world, what you can add to the world. And I think clothes have an incredible power in that way, that it's really a tool of communication. And also, and I think that's something what people really felt also now they were home, the way you dress also influences the way you feel. It's okay, everybody wanted to feel cozy and warm, so let's put your sweatshirt and your hoodie on. But on the other hand, also, some people really feel only good and comfortable when they wear like a Mr. Pearl corset and 12-centimeter heels. That's also reality. So I think it's a very personal thing in that way. So for me, it was important just to go for the fun and the light and the optimism.
See, I think one thing that I'm not sure people know about you is that you have this, you have a sort of an inner, how would I call it? We were talking about this recently, that you're really drawn to psychedelia, you're drawn to altered states. You've done collections that really focus on extremes, extremes of behavior and extreme kinds of creativity. And yet you yourself seem so calm and collected, and the navy sweater and you were saying, yes, but you do have this, you do have a beast within. And
I don't know if it's a beast, but I think, okay, it's maybe my hidden person inside of me. I think I have always had like a very classic upbringing. So it was a Jesuit school, so maybe sweaters, that's now also explained. Um, so it's really part of me. But on the other hand, I just want to discover the whole thing. And it's my feeling that I want to discover, to learn, to see all those things, which, okay, it's not nostalgia, because, okay, when you think about psychedelica and all those things that happened in the 60s, and I was alive at the 60s, but was 7 years old. So it was not really the time that I was already aware of that. So I discovered all those things quite late. But there is something which is intriguing there. It's like reading books, and I think that's also the magic of fashion. Fashion can carry you away. I think like a good book, when you read it, you can become really the person from the book. You can live in the area of that book, and I think fashion creates a little bit the same thing. And that's, I think, what's for me is so fantastic when you read then about all those incredible times when about late 60s, early 70s, when all those things happened. So it was for me like okay, I was not aware, but I feel kind of part of that in one way or another. I don't know how to explain it, but there is one part of me who likes to go completely out of that. Maybe the place where you see that most is in my garden, where when I do combinations of flowers and things like this, where I really say I break all rules and I just do things which I feel I have to do.
a flower child.
Maybe.
But when you look back at your shows, 114 shows, and when I look back, I just think about the incredible extravagance, the sort of the physical extravagance, but also the mental extravagance. I mean, it could be something as simple as the men's show you did. Not simple, it wasn't simple by any stretch of the imagination, but you know, the show that was inspired by Brian Ferry, so it was sort of glam rock, and the ceiling in the Beaux-Arts was École des Beaux-Arts was umbrellas lit from behind. So there was this ceiling of open, colorful umbrellas, which was such a simple but such a surreal effect, you know, Magritte or something. It was just
There you have our Belgian side. That's surrealism. Yeah.
They did.
No, but it's like, of course, we have a great team because
all the women's show with the hundreds of thousands of fairy lights rising up and down.
That's still one of my favorites. Like quite often I'm maybe also quite childish about it. So I like to be surprised. And also for me, surprise is even nicer when it's done with in a very simple way. I think, okay, it's fantastic that you have like huge budgets to create something, but when you can create something magical by using a very simple material, by doing something very spontaneous, where your inner child is touched, that for me are the special moments. I think that's where I really like it. When we have like 140 crystal chandeliers moving up and down, it's all those kind of theatrical effects, but it's quite simple effects at the end. So like, okay, Christmas lights, there it was purely the quantity. So it was like half a container bringing over from China, and you had like 400,000 Christmas lights. And it was like a rather simple thing, but that once they were on, it was kind of a child standing in front of the biggest Christmas tree which we could imagine. And then it also could move, it could go up and down. And it's those type of things which for me are giving kind of an extra value, because it's done with such a simple, straightforward idea. And that's what I love. And I think that creates an extra emotion, an extra layer to the emotions what we experience.
And those lights were moving up and down to the music of Godspeed You Black Emperor, which was just the most majestic. The whole thing was majestic. And you know, this is when I had to sit back and think about how I felt about maybe not seeing fashion shows anymore. It was things like this that made me sad a little bit, except when I, saw what you did with Vivian. But what other shows what other shows are you particularly proud of?
Well, it's an evolution. It can be something super simple, like the Bacon collection with the tilted mirror at the back, which became kind of also a very strange feeling. As also the collection was started from Francis Bacon, it was really the right thing to do, because you saw everything like in an imperfect way. So you saw things like every silhouette which was walking through the tilted mirror was also kind of like that deformed effect. So, but there are so many shows which I like, which I'm proud of. There are also some which I say like, oh, what was I thinking? And it was not the best idea. And why did I do it in that way? So
like what was one of those ones? I'm really curious.
Oh, there are several ones. We will once have another talk, a more private talk, to talk through those things. No, but I think, okay, I look also forward to start to think now about the next show. I think it's something which the moment that we can do it, we're gonna do a show. But I think we have to see that we find a different way, which is more sustainable, more human, more real, and using now also everything what we learned now. I don't want to go back where we were with fashion. I just think it's like, it was really the right thing what happened for fashion. Okay, it's a pity that it has to happen with the whole COVID situation, but the fact that everybody had to stop, think, review, slow down, all those things, that for me is very important. And I think I don't want to go back where we were once the whole thing is over. No, I think we have learned from it, and we are still learning now. And that for me stays very important.
Now that's what you're doing with your forum as well, is to sort of try and systematize changes that you think are necessary. What would you most want to see happen in fashion when the dust settles after this?
Slowing down, that fashion can become smaller also again. Everything was more and bigger and further away, and fashion shows all over the world. I think fashion is we are so spoiled in fashion world. We have the most beautiful things. We can do the most beautiful things. We can create. We have manufacturers who want to do things for us. We have all those artisans, all those crafts, all those possibilities. And it would be such a pity that we lose that, because everything becomes more corporate, everything becomes more product, and everything becomes faster and faster. No, we have to slow down. We have to share things with people. Why certain things are more expensive, why high street is this price, and why our things are sometimes far more expensive. all those things, it's not only about price, it's a craft. All those things we have to start to explain. And maybe this, in our hurry to create more and more and more, we lost it a little bit. And I think it's important for me to slow down, to think, to step, to move forward, but in a different way.
I mentioned before, I said did you feel like you were a man on a mission? Do you feel that you're sort of liberated as time passes, as you get older, that actually you're freer to do what you really want to do?
I don't know. It's not really freer, but I think I have quite a lot of experience. Started my own collection in 1986, so now it's ready for a while, and having done all those fashion shows, and also not having the pressure of being too big, not being too corporate. And the good thing is now, of course, also that we are now also partially under the wings of Puig, which of course also helps. But still, for me, it stays an important thing that we can think in a very free way of how we see the future of fashion, what we have to do. And I know that some people are disappointed about the forum, that nothing actually changed, but I think it's going to be slow change. Don't expect in 4 months' time, in the middle of a crisis, that we can say now we change everything. Forget it, that's not possible. But I think the mentality has to change. I think the whole rhythm of sales, all those things really have to change. Delivering beautiful garments in September and seeing them then already minus 30 or 40% beginning of November because Black Friday is coming on, and the same thing in spring. For me, it doesn't make sense. So we have to create like the new normal for people, that they know that winter clothes are there. It's from September until January, and summer clothes are then in summer, which makes sense. So we have really to work on those type of things, that people start to understand that again, and that it's not normal that you can buy a jacket at 45 euros because something is wrong then with that jacket, or it's not correctly made, because at this price, normally we can't even buy the zippers for this price. So all those things, I think we have to educate, we have to show people like, look, that's what we are standing for, that's what we are doing, and it makes sense.
Now, I think BOF found out with the Rewiring fashion initiative, the thing that I found most inspiring is that there were so many people who were kind of on the same wavelength, and it was just collecting them all together that created this hopefully created this momentum. But even just the act of bringing them all together was a great start, I thought. But I'm curious, you showed your first collection in 1986. What on earth did you imagine the future held for you in 1986?
In 1986, of course, you don't know what was going to happen. You just start with something. It's an experiment you were seeing. Luckily enough, we were doing also quite a lot of commercial collections to live from, because starting your own collection at that time was a completely different thing. So, but
30 what is it? 34 years later.
34 years later, for me, it's just like, okay. Sometimes I feel still the same energy and the same feeling, like, why not just try? And I think that a lot of things changed, a lot of things in the world changed, but I think my mentality didn't change so much. So I'm still naive, maybe in a certain way, but I can call it maybe healthy naive, that I still dare to dream, and that I still dare to try out things, even when maybe it's possible that I'm gonna smash my head against the wall, like saying, like, what did I do? Where were my thoughts that I do something like this? And so, but I like to take risks, and I think people expect that also from us. So that's also what people, they don't want to see from us kind of every time the same product. They don't want to see like always the same type of fashion show in the same venue. They want that we take risks in all different ways, and that's what we try to do.
What haven't you done yet that you really wish you could do?
Oh, the list is really long. The list is really long. Yes. In one way or another, I still feel that I'm only at the beginning of things. So that every time there are more new opportunities. As you see now also with the whole COVID situation, okay, it's sad and it's really problematic, but it creates also new opportunities. We have to look to things in a different way. We are forced now to look to things in a different way, and I think that's a good thing.
So you actually can't see a time when you would ever stop doing this then?
I don't know, maybe at a certain moment they're gonna say, now I did it, I have enough of it, and then there are no new challenges. Maybe that would be the most difficult thing for me, when I see there are no new challenges. But there's always something new, and then there's always a possibility to improve, because I'm a perfectionist and I always see from the previous collection, like, oh, this I would do now differently, and okay, let's correct it with next collection. So there's always a next one.
Well, thank you so much for the last one, and I'm really looking forward to seeing what happens in March. And you know what, I can't believe I'm saying this, but I won't miss the fashion show if you keep creating these wonderful little packages for me in my library to just sit and look at all day long and fall in love with fashion again.
Okay.
And you feel that that's what you're doing? Do you feel you've fallen back in love with fashion, or did you ever fall out of love with it, or what?
Luckily, we can say I never fell out of love for fashion, because for me, it's my one of my big loves.
Thank you for that. Thank you very much, Dries.
Thank you, Tim. Thank you. Bye.
Look forward to seeing you soon. Bye-bye.